the light coming in through the lens and refracting and bending the light around so we can see the iris. Now, if I turn off the lens, we will see how important this is. Now, this looks like an eyeball, but if I turn off the glass lens, that looks horrifying. So this is what the eye would be without the lens, which is crazy. So you can actually see not only is it refracting and bending around so we can see it from the side, but also it's refracting it from all the angles, so you can see how the pupil changes. And this is what gives the eye its look. Like this is important. The lens being rendered as glass with the refraction index of glass is one of the most important aspects. And the way you make that important is by making those two models. The lens is the thing with the bubble, and without the lens we have the ball with the iris, and you get this. So with the iris bowing in, kind of the opposite of the lens. I'm just trying to kind of draw a diagram here so you can see. I mean, you probably get it. That just looks like I'm drawing an iris pattern. But with the light coming in from here, what you get is it being shaded from the top, and then a highlight right here. And then with the lens, you'll still see this highlight, and then you'll get a reflection on top of it. And those two objects being rendered on top of each other, or you seeing those two objects and those two different material properties on top of each other, that's what gives eyes their distinct look. And it's important to kind of to make eyes in a realistic way, even if it's stylized. You'll notice in Disney and Pixar movies that even though they may, instead of a kind of blurry line, it might be very crisp. Instead of a very organic looking iris, it might be very straight lines or stylized or just one solid color. But it will have an iris that scoops in, just like ours do, and it will have a lens that bows out, and it'll be rendered like glass. Or it will always be round. Like you won't ever see an eye that's flat or scooped in like that, because that looks like it hurts. You know. Let's look at some masters here as an example. Some of the most famous eyes for me, anyway. So we'll see here in Davy Jones, we have the highlight here, right? So we have the light coming from this way. So that means highlight reflection right here and right here. Because the inside of the iris right here has a reflection, and this is shadow because the light's coming from in here. So it's hitting this because it's curved in, right? And then even though there's shadow here because it bowls in, because of the lens on top, now we get a highlight. And same with the other famous eye, good old golden. So same deal here, we have a highlight right here. There's actually two light sources, which you can see. And shadow here, and highlight here. So shadow, highlight on the shadow, and then highlight. It's probably a little bit easier to see than this one. So there we go. Now we'll jump into ZBrush and start making our eyeball. So in our scene, we start with a sphere primitive. We make that a poly mesh to be able to sculpt on it and work with it. We save our file for safety. And then in the deformation, I rotated it so that the topology pointed towards me. Now I'm dragging out an alpha and playing with the strength of it until I get the depth that I want. From the middle point, I'm just dragging it out. The size of the iris, like how far I'm going, is about half of the radius of that circle you're looking at, the eyeball with no perspective. Then I delete the ring that is the pupil, the hole in the middle of the eye. And then I extruded it in the display properties, and you have to flip it. I extruded it with Z-Modeler so that my pupil hole isn't just straight and it has some thickness there. So then I go up and I turn on symmetry, radial symmetry, and I put it to Z so that you can see you can play with how many times it duplicates your work here. And now that's how you get to work radially now, and like a lathe. And that's what's going to speed up this beginning process here. And we'll be able to use that pretty often since it's so radial. So now a mixture of the damp standard brush, the actual standard brush, to just create these lines. And I'm going off reference. That reference link is in the description if you want to look at the same things I was looking at. But I also know generally, like my goal isn't to make some scientific macro photography eye. My goal is to have a model of an eye that renders well at a reasonable distance. And like a one-day project. I really encourage, if you're watching and you're interested, you should totally try to follow along and make this. You could totally make it in one day, and it's a great way to go through the pipeline of ZBrush to Keyshot and end up with an image. So I started out this pattern with the radial symmetry just to like lay something down, and then I turn it off and I go in there and edit it to my liking. And you can see how I'm making this wrinkly muscle here that goes around. Maybe not muscle, but these wrinkly fibers. And then I'm blurring by making soft strokes the mask there to hopefully create this gradient when I puff it out like now. And masks are a great way to start a big shape like this. Using Inflate or Standard or FormSoft, whatever you want. You can kind of pop that thing out and then smooth it a bit, kind of grading it out. You think about specks in the eye, little like circles or specks you can see in some people's eyes, or dark kind of shapes moving in. When you think about abstract paintings and stuff like that, are just ways to make eyes look pretty. Realistically, those are like shadows casted by these things. So it's kind of interesting. We're going to be doing a mixture here of like trying to make these forms that make the light interesting around the iris, but also we're going to be painting in lights and dark values. It's always a great way to emphasize whatever you like and push it to have a little bit more personality, a little bit more style than we want, because we're not just going to try to make a boring-ish eye. We're going to want to make an eye that's somehow a little bit special. So now we're going to get into start painting some of this to pop out those forms. You can see we didn't go too far with the forms already, but with that, like by using cavity mask here, and I'm playing with values too to try to just get different effects. Like what I want is to just come up with layers of value and color here that make it a little bit more complicated. You can see there's like I'm playing with saturation and not saturation, and now with a bright blue color here, I get to pop out that shape I mentioned. If you kind of squint, I'm always doing that occasionally when I work, like just to see what's the blurry value read is. Here I'm darkening up those specks, emphasizing them. And pretty soon I'm going to test out what it looks like in Keyshot so that we can make some changes here. But overall, just trying to emphasize these shapes with value and form here. I'm experimenting too all the time. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna like yet. Here I'm darkening in, and I'm gonna keep changing the iris too, because so many irises are different, and I didn't want to make one that was like really like exceptional, because I'd like to be a little bit generic, and I'll just keep this in my file, in my files, and use them in projects. So the way I got the lens is I masked off the bit that's been chopped off to make the initial pupil with the transparency. I see where it is, and then I blur that mask a lot so that gradient helps me pull that little bubble out. Now, because we extruded it, we can't use the UVs of the primitive. So I went up to the plugin, the UV master, and I just unwrapped it without symmetry, and now we have UVs. So then I went to texture, new from Polypaint, cloned it, exported it as a TIFF. Now I'm importing that TIFF into Keyshot. Now I'm seeing how does this look with the lens on the outside as glass and with what we've painted on the inside. And now with the connection made, you know, I'm gonna try to go back and forth here and see, you know, see what I can see in ZBrush, what I want to improve. You can see the shadows now casted by those forms I was talking about. Especially on the bottom, you can really see the difference here. It gets so dark in Keyshot, and that's because it's actually casting a shadow there. Every now and again, you have to reapply. In the end, I think I end up thinking that it's too much contrast. That kind of squiggly fibers around the middle just pops out too much. And I don't want it to distract from anything. I want it to look just like an eye. I don't want to draw attention to the eye. You know, like someone with striking blue eyes or something. You know, if you're making a character or creature where the eyes are special and they should pop out, they should be one of the important features, like one of the exceptional features, then you just edit it, you know. You could take this eye in any direction that you want, this kind of model. You could make it an alien or an animal too. You could even turn this into a cat eye without that much effort. So now in Photoshop, because I made this TIFF, right? Now you have the full power of Photoshop. I just made a mask around the iris area, and now we can make it brown. You can make it any color you want, but as an example, I made it brown so that we can have a brown eye and a blue eye. And I can kind of demonstrate that, you know, once you paint that poly paint with Photoshop, now you can do whatever you want. And because we painted in poly paint, we don't have to worry about the seams and stuff if we're doing all this procedural editing. And if we want to do a special kind of edit, we can go back to the poly paint, paint on it, rip out a new texture from ZBrush, and there you go. So again, checking my progress. So now we're gonna start painting the veins and just the red around the back of the eye. And I didn't go too crazy with this either. That obviously varies. I mean, we know with ourselves that varies day to day, you know, if you wanna make a guy look like drunk or hasn't slept in a long time. But the general thing is the same. It's just more or less red, more or less veins. I blotched in the red in the back, but that radial again saves time, just blotching a bunch of red. And now with I turned on the lazy mouse stroke so that I can make nice clean veins and squiggly veins. Again, you know, look at reference for this stuff so that you can kind of discern patterns and where things go. But it's quite a lot of veins, more than I even painted here. I didn't go crazy. Oh, and I even used, to fill in the edges around, I used ZBrush's vein alpha that comes with it, and I put it on a scatter brush and just like lightly scattered it around to fill in the gaps. Now checking our veins. And now I'm blurring that edge. I want to make sure that that looks blurry and popping out that fiber thing that we were working on. It got lost. The more you sculpt, the more it kind of gets lost. But it's important to me that the iris is a little bit blurry around the edge. Like, it's a fine line because you're getting that corner from so many things. The actual form stopping of the iris, the color, and the lens stopping. So all of these things are like in a trifecta making this edge. So the goal for me is to make the iris close up, not crisp, organic looking, but from a distance, definitely a hard circle. Which as you can see we're getting. You see how hard that circle looks here, the edge of our iris, and how blurry it actually is. So I'm still just blurring it out and moving back and forth to see how our progress is. But that light coming in around, I like that. There you have it, making an eye in ZBrush. I hope you learned a thing or two. I really hope that if you're interested at all in doing this, do it. If you're interested in the pipeline from ZBrush to Keyshot, totally do this. This is a great project that takes a few hours. You could give yourself a whole day and take something from scratch all the way to Keyshot, make a nice pretty image, and you know, make it an alien eye, a monster eye, whatever. It's got so many different little techniques that'll really add to your toolbox for other projects you have in mind. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Drop a like if you want. Subscribe if you like this sort of thing, you want to see more videos, and happy sculpting. Peace! Eyes, the windows to the soul.